Hi everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the first half of May and the total lunar eclipse that we have coming up in Scorpio on the 15th or 16th, depending on where in the world you live. I'm putting this out a few days early because we're already well within this eclipse energy, and it's an important one as well. Eclipses we feel up to a month before and up to 6 months later. And so there's really a 7-month period of influence, if you like, or orb. And I want to really emphasize that this is true of any planetary aspect. Yes, there is always a day and a time of exactitude when the planets are exactly in aspect. But remember that astrology is a language of mathematical probability. So these are waves of probability. So in the case of eclipses, it's a wave of probability covering around 7 months. And yes, things are more likely to manifest close to exactitude, the exact day and time, but not necessarily happening on that day. The same is true of any aspect. Let's say the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, which was exact on the 12th of April. It wasn't just for that day. It was actually building in a wave from the time that Jupiter was co-present in Pisces from January all the way through to mid-May when it exits Pisces, which I'll be talking about in a moment. So see any aspect. Sometimes these waves of probability last a day. In some cases, it's going to be several years if you're dealing with outer planets that are moving very slowly. So see them as a process rather than a pinpoint. Because sometimes people have said, well, April 12th came and went and nothing much happened to me. Well, partly that is because the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction is a very internalized energy. It's very yin. It's very much to do with your own spiritual upgrade of becoming more psychically sensitive, more tuned into your dreams, as we've talked, more moving to the crystalline, shedding density. And it really is just one wave in this evolutionary process for humanity that we're going through. So I hope that helps to see it as a longer period of process and probability and not just a pinpoint for that day. So let's get into the detail. Just a couple of things to mention before we get into the total lunar eclipse itself. On the 4th of May, the sun comes to conjunct Uranus. So it highlights the high energy, the kind of excitability, the revolutionary energy of Uranus. We could see some shocks, surprises, earthquakes around that day on the 4th. Big surge for freedom as well on that day. On the 10th, Mercury starts to move retrograde in one of its regular 3-week retrograde motions. It does that at 4:51 of Gemini, 4 degrees 51, and retrogrades back into Taurus on the 23rd and stays retrograde until the 3rd of June. So while it's retrograding in Gemini, the sign, one of the signs it rules, it could be that we're much more aware of the words we use on social media, Gemini, and the words we use with our friends. Once it retrogrades back into Taurus from the 23rd of the month, there's a greater sense of, I'm just going to tell it like it is. I'm just going to be really blunt about this. And that kind of feeds into one of the themes for the eclipses here as well. Big aspect to mention is on the 11th of May, Jupiter moves from Pisces into Aries. This is a very big shift in energy. Pisces is yin, feminine, receptive, dreamy, creative, very much tuning into the intangibles in life, very super sensitive energy. Whereas Aries is the warrior energy. It's ruled by Mars. And so this is going to be a very interesting shift from the 11th of May till the 28th of October. Jupiter will be in Aries. It will then retrograde back again into Pisces, and on the Capricorn solstice on the 21st of December, it will move back again into Aries. Jupiter has a 12-year cycle. So see where Aries falls in your chart, which house area it falls in. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website, go to the link below in the description, and you can buy a 2-part tutorial video series that will explain everything you need to know about how to find these points in your chart that I constantly refer to in all of the updates. You can use it to infinity, as many times as you want for any update I ever do. So look back to 12 years ago. Jupiter moved into Aries in June 2010. It then retrograded back into Pisces. It re-entered Aries January, February of 2011. See what was happening in your life then, because normally Jupiter will bring about a sense of expansion, personal growth opportunities. It may be that you travel. It may be that you study. It may be that you start up a business. It really depends where Aries falls in your chart. If it falls in your second house, you could have an expansion in your income. Did that happen to you in 2010, 2011? Because every 12 years it will repeat again. There'd be an echo of what happened last time, but also vortex upwards in its expression. If it's in the 9th house, there might have been some travel or some study, metaphysical or even professional. If it's in your 11th house, did your friendships and networks expand? So it very much depends on the house area. But particularly if you have the sun, the moon, or your ascendant in Aries, this should be a positive year of personal growth for you. So generally, Jupiter brings us benefits. It's known as the Great Benefic. What was interesting in 2011, when it was just entering Aries, this was the run into the Arab Spring, when several old fossilized leaders who held power for decades were just knocked out of leadership literally in a few days. It was a very revolutionary period, and that's when Jupiter was just moving into Aries. So it's moving into this very first sign of the zodiac. Now, just to say as well, I think the whole Arab Spring echo from 12 years ago is very interesting. Also, if you've been dreaming or envisaging something big during the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, which, by the way, is still continuing until the middle of May, it's going to be out of sign on the 11th of May because Jupiter's now changed sign. Whatever you've been dreaming big, dreaming in, what action, Aries, can you now take to make real that dream? What action or actions can you take to step towards that dream? Now, Jupiter entering 0 of Aries is very important. Firstly, it's the very first degree of the zodiac. So there's a feeling of fresh new energy, a whole new episode happening here, collectively and personally. Anything which is at 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, which are Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, that is known as the world axis on the public stage, if you like. So if you have a planet or an angle between 2 degrees of or by the side of that. So if you have a planet or an angle at 28 degrees of the mutable signs, which are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, or up to 2 degrees of the cardinal signs, which I've just mentioned, that planet or angle for you will be considered to be on the world axis. And that means that it has the potential to be in front of the public in some way. For instance, Mercury is the planet of communication. I have my Mercury at 1 degree of Aries, so it's on the world axis. So Mercury is about speaking and writing. So what do? I speak and write publicly. So that's how it works. So if you have that natally, this can be very positive for you. But there's a feeling of breaking new ground. It's another beginning of a 12-year episode here. Aries is about your, yes, it can increase the assertion, the amount of assertiveness we see in the world, but it can also help you step into your courage, your power, your bravery. And I mentioned right at the beginning of the year in January, when I was filming themes for 2022, that this is a year when we have to find our strength and resilience. And Jupiter moving into Aries very much helps us with that. It's all about strength and resilience. And a phrase just kept coming to mind with Jupiter and Aries: find the hero within yourself. Find the hero within yourself, because this really helps us to step into being a co-creator in a very positive way, rather than being a victim. There's no victim about Aries at all. It is very much, okay, I'm going to start to create my own life. So what new adventure, chapter, exploration can you start to go on? Take action wherever Jupiter is falling in Aries in your chart. Can you be a pioneer in your life? Can you be a leader? So really, it's fresh energy and breaking new ground. And what is also interesting is that Uranus is also aspecting the world axis. Any hard aspect to the world axis, which I've just described, I consider to be kind of equal the world axis. So Uranus is, by the time we get to this total lunar eclipse, has moved to 15 degrees of Taurus. It hasn't been at that degree point for about 84 years, because it has an 84-year orbit. So again, it's breaking new ground in that sense, but it's also in semi-square to the world axis, because it's 45 degrees from 0 of Aries. So what's interesting about both Jupiter and Uranus is that they are both about the truth, they're both about freedom, and they're both about the future. Uranus can be about galactics as well. And Jupiter is about far-flung travel, so they have that kind of parallel as well. So it's very interesting. This new, fresh energy breaking new ground is very much the feeling here. Jupiter is also semi-square Uranus. And so that has a very strong signature of the expansion, Jupiter, of our higher mind, of our consciousness. Lovely. Some very positive aspects to that. But now let us look at the chart for the total lunar eclipse, which is super powerful. This is happening on the 15th of May at 9:13 p.m. Pacific, and it's happening on the 16th, the next day, at 5:13 a.m. UK time, British summer time. So many things I want to say about this. When we have any full moon, and a lunar eclipse is just a very big full moon, feelings and emotions tend to come to a head. They do that more when it's a lunar eclipse, because that's a big full moon. They do it even more when it's a total lunar eclipse, and they do it even more when it's a supermoon, which means that the moon is very close in its orbit to the Earth. And they do it even more when it's in the most intense water, i.e. emotional sign in the zodiac, which is Scorpio. This could be a game changer, I think. We have many peaks going through 2022. This total lunar eclipse, which isn't just for those 2 days, remember, as an orb of influence, could be a game changer, I believe, in the unfolding of our journey. So let's take a look. I'll share my screen here. So Jupiter, as we see here, is at 0. Well, it's really 1 degree of Aries, so it's on the world axis, as I've been talking about, and it is semi-square to Uranus here. Another lovely aspect from Jupiter is that it is sextile Mercury. So this is thinking big, as well as taking action on your dream, your vision that you've been having over recent weeks with that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. It's also thinking big. It's also actually in an out of sign sextile here to Pluto, which is about stepping into our power. And Pluto, you may note, is also in a trine to the sun, and it's also sextile the moon, this eclipsed moon here. And so that is again about stepping into our power. Moon in mundane astrology is the people. intensity of feeling is coming up again with this sextile. So stepping into our power, but a lot of intensity we're going to be feeling at this time. Now, for an eclipse to take place, the moon has to either be at the north end of the nodal axis or the south end. In this case, it is at the south end, the south node. Now, normally the south node isn't shown on the chart, but it is always, always, always exactly opposite the north node. So the north node is 22 of Taurus, and the south node I've drawn in as this squiggle here will be at 22 of Scorpio, so conjunct the moon here. So that's why it's a total lunar eclipse, because they're very tightly conjunct. The south node is about our collective past. And it's very much about a letting go. Any full moon is about a letting go. Total lunar eclipse, conjunct the south node, big time letting go. Really big time. And Scorpio as a sign is linked to power, control. It's a very complex energy. It's deep, it's heavy, it's really, it's purging. This is purging because Scorpio is linked to elimination. And I don't want to get too graphic and colourful here, but I really, I'm kind of seeing visions of sewage here. We are going to see some really mucky stuff about our collective at this huge time of purging. I think it's a massive time of disclosure that we're seeing here. The South Node in Scorpio is about toxicity of all kinds, pollution. It's about betrayal, a betrayal of trust in people or institutions that you've respected in the past or held dear. It's about things that are underground, underhand, criminal, secrets of the rich and powerful, big money of the rich and powerful, investments, banking, all that kind of thing. But it's murky stuff that I see coming out. That's why I see it as such a game changer. I think an awful lot is going to be brought to light. Strong Uranus aspecting the world axis. A lot is going to be brought to light at this time, around this time, remember. The total lunar eclipse will last for 90 minutes approximately. That's quite long. It will geographically fall across South America, much of North America, southwestern Europe, Africa, and much of the Indian Ocean. And the geographic areas that fall under the eclipse, or form the eclipse path, if you like, very often come into the news in the months following. So it'll be interesting to see what emerges. We may have more digital developments at this time too, because Uranus is highlighted. Another very tight aspect to mention is, this has been running for some weeks now, but Saturn is still in this long-running T-square to the nodal axis. That's at 22, Saturn's at 24. And although this whole year of 2022 is a tipping point, eclipses are pivot points too. They often mark major endings that are permanent. And so see where this total lunar eclipse falls in your chart at 2517 of Scorpio, because very often it falls in a house area which is linked to a completion, a closure, a culmination, something falling away. It's very often a permanent change. So with Saturn here, not only is 2022 a tipping point, and eclipses in general tend to be pivot points, but Saturn is also this choice point, which I've mentioned before, this choice point. And it's really asking us individually and collectively, do we fall back to the old ways, Saturn, the old structures, the way we always used to do things, the safety and security of the rules and regulations? I see Saturn increasingly as just a kind of hollow shell, it's a done deal. Or do we use the Aquarius side of this to step into creating our future? Because that's where I believe our focus has to be. So what's very interesting as well at this eclipse, and this has been running for a little while, a lot of the planets are in final few degrees of their signs. Pluto 28, Neptune 24, almost 25. Quite a few of them, the sun and moon here are late in their signs. And so that really emphasizes this feeling of endings. But now Jupiter has moved on to this very first degree of the zodiac, as I say. So really think, what can you do that's new in your life? What new episode, adventure, action can you take? Because I think this is a very big part of what we're seeing here. The other very nice thing to share with you is that this is also Mars Neptune conjunction, very tight here, is about taking spiritual action. Because actually this is still a conjunction. It's an out of sign conjunction, but it's still within 6 degrees here, pretty much exactly 6 degrees. So that's operational, of the big dreaming, the big visions for your future. And that Mars Neptune conjunction is trine to the eclipsed moon. So whatever is happening at this total lunar eclipse has to be taken in a spiritual context moving forwards, a spiritual context. We are moving into a much more spiritual age of the heart as well. So I'm going to stop sharing here. I just want to say as well, which things of note. I've noticed that if we look at the chart of the US president, last November, 19th of November, he had a total lunar eclipse opposite his sun, SUN. And when you have a total lunar eclipse, or even a lunar eclipse, aspecting your sun, very often there's an energy wipeout. You're taken out in some way. Now, on the 19th of November, it was that day exactly, actually, he had a general anesthetic in order to have a colonoscopy. Energy wipeout for the day. Now, this time around with this total lunar eclipse, 25 Scorpio, it is conjunct his sun. Sun is your vitality, your energy, your prominence, if you like, in the world. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. This total lunar eclipse very much aspecting in some of the charts, the charts of the senior royal family. This is conjunct the Queen's midheaven, almost exactly within 17 minutes of exactitude. Now, the midheaven is your status, your reputation, your work in the world, your visibility, if you like, with your work in the world. So this total lunar eclipse, which is a period of 90 minutes of darkness, if you like, is conjunct her midheaven. It's also conjunct her Saturn, which is her chart ruler, because she has a Capricorn ascendant. It's conjunct the sun, SUN, of Prince Charles, which is his chart ruler, because he has a Leo ascendant. It's conjunct the moon of Prince Andrew. And the moon in a chart is your mother. So if we look at just those 3 very important members of the royal family, their charts are being hit very specifically and very hard by this total lunar eclipse. So is this suggesting some kind of changing of the guard with the English royal family? The Queen is now 96 and has been ill with COVID recently. We will see. We will see what unfolds. But I just found that interesting. I also want to point out, and many of you are aware of this because I share it all the time on social media, but we are having an exponential number of coronal mass ejections, M-class and X-class flares, which are super strong. In the last 24 hours, I think we've had 19 M-class, and I think we had 1 X-class flare, which was massive. It's even bigger than an M-class, but they are coming thick and fast. And that is very destabilizing for the geomagnetics of the Earth. It's very destabilizing for us as individuals. And we are experiencing lots of physical effects, insomnia, dizziness, ringing in the ears, extreme tiredness, etc., etc. But it is part of our ascension, because these solar flares, coronal mass ejections are constantly bringing us new information. They're bringing new information into the biosphere. and into us as individuals to enable us to hold more light in our bodies. Photonic energy, photonic light. We are getting new information all the time to hold more light in our bodies. We're becoming crystalline. People I know can see the crystalline geometry in the plasma all around us. It's really exciting. But it is destabilizing. We are going to see a great deal of turbulence in the 3D world, even more than we have done. It could be very noisy, very chaotic. As our evolution as humanity accelerates, so does the demolition. They're just two ends of the same stick, the same process, if you like. So lots of noise. Do not get caught up in the drama and the noise. There's going to be an awful lot to catch your attention. Stay at the hub of the wheel. It's going to be a lot of rubber hitting the road on the outside. The wheel is going to be going faster and faster. Stay at the hub of the wheel. Stay calm, stay peaceful, stay in your center, stay in your power. And think of yourself almost like a lighthouse. You know, the lighthouse is rock solid, on a rock. Sea storms, big gales, massive seas rage around it, but that is always the sanctuary for the sailors. They're tossed up on that bit of rock in the lighthouse, and they'll find sanctuary on that bit of rock. So hold your frequency steady and broadcast your light. The lighthouses never stop broadcasting their light. That is our task right now. So focus on your frequency, your strength, your resilience, your steadiness in these times. These are qualities that are going to serve us well. Stay in your eagle's perch. You know, don't get dragged in negatively. It's going to be an awful, just don't energize what we don't want. It's really that simple. Energize what you do want. And I was just thinking, you know, this jump in our evolution, although yes, of course, it's still invisible to us. We have to trust up the frequency, which is ramping up so quickly. It's almost like if you, the change, the transformation that happens from a caterpillar to a butterfly. And if you could speak to a caterpillar, particularly in the chrysalis stage, which is what we're really in this year, we're in the chrysalis stage. This is the most intense year, I believe, in this whole period from 2012 to 2032. You might say to that caterpillar, do you know, quite soon, you are going to have total freedom. You're going to be able to fly around and take off and land on flowers and see amazing colors. The caterpillar is going to say, are you kidding me? There's not a hope of that. I can't even move a millimeter in this chrysalis. You know, what kind of world are you on? Because he can't see it. But that is part of the evolutionary blueprint for the caterpillar. Just like it is part of our evolutionary blueprint to take a big leap forwards in our evolution, but it's going to be rocky getting there. Particularly this year, I think it's going to be very rocky, but we are going to see a lot of disclosure, a lot of truth, a lot of collapse, a lot of chaos. Know that that has to take place in order to have a clean start for birthing the new. So hold on tight. We are holding hands digitally across the world. And I hope this has helped you. This is a biggie, I think. There's a series of big peaks through the year, as I say, and I think this is a very, very significant one. So if you'd like more information about my books, my teaching videos, my long monthly newsletter, just check out my website, pamgregory.com. Thanks so much for listening. God bless, and bye for now.